Hello, folks. It is I, Brendan. I'm here talking about some ideas and theories around, UFOs. Of course, that's like the great attractor for a lot of the thinking that I do. But more specifically, how it applies to biology, physics, the concept of the self-actualized individual, how we perceive our body and how that relates to our consciousness, and whether or not these objects, if we could call them that yet, seem to be objects, or as Carl Jung ended up concluding that they're an archetype with physical properties, which, what does that mean? So we might get into that a little bit. I've been really attracted lately, and I don't know if these guys are going to appreciate being thrown under the UFO bus, but I've been really attracted lately to these guys' work. One of them is Michael Levin. Another one's Karl Friston. Another one is Cronin. And these are just some amazing dudes that are working at the frontiers of biology, statistics, AI, metamaterials, and consciousness and concepts of the self, it's amazing to me that we're at the point as a species where this is where future work has to go. To facilitate further explorations, because we've gone to some of the smallest things and some of the biggest things. We're finally forced, after about 100 years of just kind of procedurally doing this amazing quantum physics and other forms of science and genetics and biology. We've been procedurally doing these things without really fully understanding our own theories behind them. If you go far enough into studying science, you notice a lot of gaps, right? And then the people that are working on these things, sometimes they might be really inculcated into their categories of what they do, and they're so used to doing it that they might lose sight of other people. They might lose sight of what other people are doing, where their perspectives are at. And where I was going with this is that the general public perception is about 10 or 20 years behind where public science is at. It's even further behind where public science in the military is at. And this is what these folks are talking about. Now, Michael Levin, or I should probably start with Karl Friston. That's who I have on my list here. I made notes for myself so it wouldn't just be all over the map. But he refers to this concept of the Markov blanket, and I don't think that he came up with that. I think it was somebody named Markov, but it's a statistical concept that has to do with the kind of like the individual. I mean, what it is it's what is inside a system versus what's outside a system. In other words, like the concept of the self, or even of there being a thing, insinuates that there's a statistical system inside and a statistical system outside, and that those interact. Sometimes this is, played out in physical arrangements, like the self, you as a person, but also the semi-permeable membrane of a cell. If there was no interactions between the Markov blanket and outside reality, the Markov blanket is the interaction. That's the valence of this interaction. That's the set of rules that are prescribed to this set of conditions that separates a thing from a not thing. And one of them is the cell, another is the self, another is, societies, the planet. You can look around and see these everywhere once you understand the concept. But we have a situation not just with AI, but we could create industrial technology with a sense of self. And that might sound dangerous, except that if you had the built-in feedback mechanism that it was designed for a purpose and fulfilled that purpose, like a tree doesn't keep growing past its set genetic size of being a tree. If it does, then that's what we call a mutant, and that's not supposed to happen. But there's error correcting codes in biology that help fix that. So this concept of a self, and that the self has limits and that it has interacting rules, is really critical to understanding statistics, understanding anything in a world of things. Otherwise, it would just be a big gray blob, which is also, people talk about with nanotech and AI. One of the concerns is, a reality where we can't tell the difference between things, or a reality with no valence. In other words, no edges, and gray goo in a literal sense. Like we talk about gray goo scenario, and that's basically a bunch of nanobots losing their minds collectively like a cancer and getting out of control. So this Markov blanket concept is pretty important. And we continue to our next guy. I'm trying to get some dang music going so that my headphones aren't just giving me nothing. Here we go. And so Michael Levin is this really awesome guy that is working at the edges of biology on the concept of self-organizing systems and intelligence and consciousness, although he distinguishes consciousness, at the upper group level from consciousness at the lower level, but he does see it as a spectrum that involves layers of order, right? So at the lowest level of what you call the self or the cell, which is the cell, as far as we know, there's organelles, there's beyond that, organic molecules, proteins and stuff sometimes behave in a somewhat animated fashion. DNA itself seems to behave in some weird ways too, but just talking about the cell and how it cascades, there's an intelligence in its identity and sense of purpose that goes beyond, and we're really anthropomorphizing here, but to some extent that it's not anthropomorphosis. They've shown through experiments how the connections are real, and that there's a level of understanding, call it, or memory, call it, beyond DNA that involves the shapes and functions, where the function at a certain threshold of a number of cells and the shape it's trying to be, and the understanding kind of between these small order intelligences on building it, feeds back into the process, and it kind of goes away with itself to a point, right? So, does it keep growing and growing? No, that's cancer, and that's part of this. There's like a bioelectric connection, and I forget all the phrases, and I don't want to go into it too much, but you can just Google Michael Levin and what he has to say about this. There's ion channels in the cells, and there's bioelectric relationships that happen there, just like in neurons. We've been going around thinking it's all about the brain, it's all about these connections and structures in the brain, and that they have these very specific natured functions. And the whole idea of neuroscience and a lot of the physical neuroscience ends has been looking for years for a location either in the neuron or in the brain itself for consciousness, for perception, for it's not untrue that there are regions that are dedicated to certain points found through MRIs, through other kinds of science. But the fact is that these similar networks and similar forms of memory exist at this very small level and cascades to higher and higher levels. And then this sort of helps explain how organs are formed. And when this bioelectric feedback is not going correctly, then cancer results. And they've shown like they could have actually added a gene, a cancer-causing gene to a cell and injected that cell into an animal. Don't approach me about the ethics, but they then kept the animal from developing cancer throughout its body just by maintaining this bioelectric field through applied pathways of these ion channels through tailored drugs and stuff. And they've done all this work on axolotls and planarians and stuff, which have natural regenerative abilities, but trying to figure out where those come from and applying it to things like frogs and mice and other stuff in small amounts, and doing some freaky things like making legs grow off of frogs in the wrong places and stuff, just to understand the nature of cells and why cells form certain tissues and why they form organs where they do and where those instructions come from. And so that's some just really insanely powerful work that is going to, this guy is going to get the Nobel Prize in biology probably next year, because it's just changing everything. I'm in a biology class right now in college, and it's not talking about any of this. And so much of what those classes do teach for the last, 40, 50 years, as much as it's changed from CRISPR and genetic modification and and genetic testing and every other thing that we've found, gotten in the last 30 years even, this is just going to take it to another level where it applies. And you might be interested where I think it might apply to UFOs. But it definitely applies to how automata, small levels of intelligent automata, and with a designated process and a goal, work together and even recruit others in order to achieve that goal, and then stop when it's done. So on to Lee Cronin. This guy is pretty amazing too, and he, in the context of extraterrestrial searches, he has gone and come up with a kind of alternate definition for what is a living thing. Now, in following along Karl Friston's work with statistics and AI and intelligent information systems, self-replicating information systems, and where those are and establishing the boundaries. And then Michael Levin's work with understanding biology as a computational kind of process, but not so much the hardware, which is he's actually trying to figure out call it JavaScript of life. Somebody said, a brilliant comment. This guy's invented JavaScript for biology, for better or worse. Hopefully for better. If more and more people understand this stuff that's coming now, it will be less likely for the powers that be to use it to manipulate people. It's like up to all of us to understand. That's why I'm making these videos. Because anyway, so Lee Cronin has this thing called assembly theory. He's partially responsible. He has a bunch of people working for him, huge team. But to define life as a kind of computational algorithm that self-recreates, right? So the idea being, this would include viruses. It might even include Twitter bots. It might include AI, but as a mechanism of not necessarily defining life, we kind of know what life is. There's there's a lot of debate over whether viruses are living things, but this would include viruses. It wouldn't include things like fire. Like you look at the definition of life, which is that it creates, uses energy, maintains a homeostasis, reproduces itself, has an organization and a function that's aside from its surrounding environment, and a chemical equilibrium that's not at equilibrium with its environment. So, understanding that in an informational context, that's an informational system that self-reproduces, takes energy and information from its surroundings, maintains its energy homeostasis, and maintains its own internal informational equilibrium outside of its informational environment. So that's the Markov blanket. That's a computed thing. So that's to look for. I mean, how do we know out there what is alive? And could we be talking about multi-dimensional energies that have? My 3-year-old's watching preschool stuff. There's that too. Trying to maintain a flow of thought. Right. So we have a statistical system. We have no idea what life is. It could be made of plasma. It could be made. There's already talk about how there's life on Titan, a moon of Saturn, possibly, that's made or is made of carbon, but doesn't use liquid water, as its platform. The nature of methane on that planet is liquid, and that is a polar enough molecule. There's some people think that there's specialty microbes that are using that, living in that, which is not. I mean, we found microbes on this planet that live in pure arsenic in Mono Lake, and other weird little beasties, and that's just the carbon-based stuff. And people talk about silicon-based life. They talk about all sorts of things. But this idea of what if your life, quote unquote, is actually more of an informational thing, even to the extent that it could live in information in any given substrate, no matter what the pieces, no matter what the parts be, there is the capability of chemicals to assemble new chemicals, and that some of those memory patterns stick and stay and self-repeat, and modify themselves, improve themselves. The idea being that they select, like good things are selected, and things that don't work are not selected for that environment, in any given environment. So that the answer for what life is, in to a large degree, is it depends. At least if we're talking about life that it could exist in other places in this universe, other universes, other dimensions. How would we identify that? And so Lee Cronin is one of these fellows that's on that pathway to, in terms of SETI, in terms of trying to create new ways that we can find these algorithms in the data. And some people like it, and some people don't like it. Although, if you're coming from this place and oops. And so, essentially, an hour later, after request for popsicle turned into start breakfast, take care of a few things, and so forth and so on. Here I am back, and I'm not sure if you'll be seeing me for all of this, but that's the beauty of editing. So, to go on about Lee Cronin, he deals a lot with cellular automata, and he's done a lot of work to create these programmed, he calls them computers, but basically what they are is auto-assemblers to test out chemical composites in real life, in the laboratory. We do a lot of synthesizing different chemical bonds and stuff like that. These are actually computers that are designed to synthesize lab experiments over and over and over and over and over again at a rapid, industrial pace. So that's in a way that leads to, and that connection with cellular automata, that's all based on sort of trying to replicate life itself. And the idea being eventually, we could have these in every pharmacy, potentially household, probably more like pharmacy, etc., for drug production for individualized electroceutical drugs. So imagine your particular genetic makeup and bio makeup and your physiology and your particular needs. You can have something particularly fabricated for yourself, just one pill to rule them all. Or where I get to is where this gets into synthetic biology or biomimicry, in the sense that we could create these sort of like nanofactories that create complex objects and arrangements of metamaterials and things like that we could scale and essentially create like biological frameworks or biological adjacent frameworks that are real, but capture quantum properties of certain arrangements that then, unlike reality, give them a real context in the sense that they're part of this self-identified, call it a craft, that regenerates itself and has a purpose, possibly a consciousness. I'm so sure that Lee and these others have gotten enough scrutiny, and they've well proved their concept, and they're very famous people now. I'm sure a lot of people are latching onto their ideas to try and explain this or that in the sun and the moon. But I'm very excited at how these things are going, and it all kind of comes together with these other points of data. Like, for example, let's get into the other people that are working on the UFO stuff. One of whom is now Garry Nolan, here's yet another biologist. I'm not sure how hip he is to these other theories from Lee and Michael and Karl yet, but he's had the opportunity to look at some alleged materials, let's say. He was drawn to an alleged site by somebody that, again, alleged to have worked for the U.S. government in one of these programs. And the site was strewn with aluminum trash and cans and automobile trash and other stuff like that. So it was apparently this happened at such a point where the systems of control and censorship were not so robust, and the people involved were just simple military grunts and stuff. So the idea being that they couldn't get rid of absolutely everything from some of these areas. You've got a debris field where some of this material might be strewn for hundreds of yards, maybe theoretically miles. And so you wash out, you introduce noise, you wash out the signal with noise. And so you dump a bunch of other trash, and it makes it seem like whatever you find there is not going to be so interesting. Or if you do, find anything there, how do you tell it from the others? But he apparently found this frog skin-like material that this guy actually has the abilities and the know-how to know what he's looking at, and the microscopes, the electron microscopes to look up these structures. And what it seems like is that there's these precise arrangements of molecules. It seems like metamaterials. It seems like stuff that we can't make ourselves, and or they haven't found who did make it, and they take it to the best people that supposedly know stuff, and they say, where did you get this, and how was this made, etc. It's like quartz-based, silica-based metamaterials that are bound in certain ways with special, like I think magnesium, aluminum, other basic kind of metals, but they're in weird isotopic ratios. So they could be from other sources, or they could be doped in certain ways, or irradiated in certain ways, or assembled in certain ways that have a variety of interesting properties. So what he's just determined, similar to like Lee's auto assembling computers, is somebody out there has like a database of like 200 or so isotopes of the various chemical elements that we have at our disposal, whatever limited number, in the 70s. Don't ask me to bring it up right now. But long story short, somebody's playing with more tools, more Legos in their box than we have. Imagine, some kid's got fancy Lego connections, or his dad works at the factory or something, and he's got 200 different Lego kits. You just got the 70-something that come in the standard. So that's what we're talking about, and no telling where they came from, but it's real, and you can see it, and nobody knows how it's built, and it's built in these weird ways. So it dovetails together with if already somebody, or theoretically somebody someday could. Okay, let's just say, for the sake of argument, those materials don't exist. He didn't see them. They didn't come from anywhere, whatever that means. But it's an example. The idea is a powerful idea that something about being able to take quantum effects and scale them by taking these unique geometries and configurations that we discover at the molecular scale, and create devices whose skin and functionality could theoretically warp space or change energy, or just achieve things like extreme superconductivity to facilitate like massive amounts of energy flowing to a certain region, or even antennas and things that change shape and change their configuration based on state change or the introduction of frequencies and stuff like that. The nobody really knows. Proposing that the UFOs exist, which I believe they exist, and that they're real and that they're using technology. How are they in the air? And some people think anti-gravity, but what is that really? There's a lot of people that don't really understand gravity. We don't really understand gravity. We know more now about the true nature of it, what it is, because of Einstein and because of others. But even with quantum gravity and string theories, we're still just poking the edges of this, poking around the edges of the elephant. We still don't know what the elephant is, what its organs are. We don't know how it works. And to wit, there's a lot of the gravity research that happened after Einstein, post-Einsteinian gravity research, had a large connection to people that were legit studying anti-gravity, and its potential use. People like T. Townsend Brown, who developed this electrogravitic technology, which worked, but I forget, they said it couldn't have, I have chickens, it couldn't have worked how he said it worked, and it wasn't true anti-gravity, because although to say that it's not true anti-gravity would insinuate that you understand gravity, so I don't understand how they can say that. Either way, whether it was just introducing high energy, high frequency electromagnetic fields in tiny places, very, very, very close to the Schwarzschild metric. That's this very small area around any given object to create basically lift and thrust. And they said it was based on ionic discharge. Okay, if it works, it works. Like, does it have to be official anti-gravity in your, box or your definition to be what it is? It's still a powerful thing. So it's quite possible, as happens, that this tech, they don't just take functioning tech and put it and never use it again. What happens is they'll put out a paper that says this doesn't work the way he says it works, and pretend to poo-poo it and then keep working on it. So are there these objects, or could there be these objects that, have properties that produce minute effects are capable of superconducting and controlling electromagnetic fields and energies and frequencies at tight scales around basically something with a living chemical skin, call it, in order to resist the effects of gravity, or at least produce like a universal thrust all around, and then control that. Maybe even produce enough energy to warp physics, move extreme speeds, tiny vacuums, tiny Casimir vacuums that you kind of pull the thing into. There's a guy that's worked on a lot of this, and he's developed a set of patents for the Navy because he couldn't get it through academia. But these Navy PhDs saw what they were looking at and realized the significance. And this guy knew the significance of what he did. So he went straight to the Navy because it's a big deal. These energies are no joke. That guy is Pais. And I forget his Pais, his first name might be Gabriel. But he did all of this. So his effect is called the Pais effect. And there's a lot of people that are debating that, obviously, but nobody can disprove it. It's worth maybe looking into, although these energies are considerable. Although these materials might be somewhat like kind of what we need to get these energies in one location and actually test this. And the materials are not materials that we're used to thinking about. We're talking about creating, self-identifying, almost arguably conscious artificial systems that are capable of putting into reality geometries that aren't developed on the planet they exist, or really a lot of places naturally in space-time, because they're powered by intelligences that are capable of imagining all of these. And quantum computers are going to, I think, have a lot to do with this, because those allow us to kind of superposition our questions and literally reach out and get the answer. It's quite scary that some of the direct applications of this are quantum problems. So it all comes kind of together. And another person that has materials is Lyndon Moulton Howe. And some of those materials have gotten spread out and shared with others. But that is a tight layering of bismuth and aluminum and zinc in this material that they don't know how it was made, but it's atomic layering of these things. And again, what kind of technology can make that? We have advanced aircraft, aerospace, aluminum manufacturers saying, how did you get this? There's a pure aluminum piece that allegedly came out of a crash site in New Mexico that Jacques Vallée has had. He doesn't seem to think it's ET in nature, but they still haven't been able to find anybody on this planet that knows how to do the process to get aluminum as pure as they have this, or who would make such a thing. And it is strange looking, although it possesses metric stuff on it, which indicates some human origin, or metric actually. Now, we've tied that to the speed of light. I think a meter is such and such, how much that light crosses in a vacuum in a certain number of picoseconds or something like that. So that could be sort of more universal than we think too. But either way, there's these anachronistic artifacts. There's these artifacts and materials that emerge, and we don't know how they're made. And this kind of thing could explain how they could have been made and or could be made. Bringing this together, we're talking about a solid state technology that sort of mimics biology in the sense that it plays on these ideas of the self-integrated collective of self-actualized individual cells that scale up to a self-individualized individual, whether that be craft, tree, cell human planet. And so like understanding this sort of cybernetic picture of reality, biology, physics, all that's entailed, chemistry, is perhaps what was needed to even begin to understand this. Now it becomes like apparent, like why, if there are beings out there, if they've been keeping this from us, that why we needed to acquire this, in my own experiences, seeing lights in the sky, this kind of thing. That's usually the message I get, is like, go forth, young man, and prosper and learn, the parts of your reality, and how it works. Because otherwise there's no structure to scaffold this advanced stuff on top of. The advanced is made of the less advanced, just as the individual collective is made of individual cells. And, if that doesn't blow your mind, I don't know what will. And I hope I've made some kind of sense or brought this together. And I hope somebody out there working these things sees this and gets a hold of me. I'd love to talk to more people about this stuff. And I'm just kind of chasing the data to see where it leads. It's not science to say, but it is, productive to say that the things you're learning could be leading somewhere. And that's not unscientific. That's a big part of the process. As it is with these ideas of a complete leg, leading the cells to the completion of the leg. And it also dovetails with how the completion of the time circuit with photons from distant galaxies works between cause and effect, to make the proton jump to your eye where it doesn't pass time, and how circuits don't work unless the electron can detect the end, and circuits actually work on this quantum completion of the diagram, the working diagram, and everything flows through there. It's all connected, folks. Anywho, take care. Bye-bye.